Hello and welcome to the Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our first run review of the New Balance Rebel V5. So the Rebel V5 is the latest version of the Fuel Cell Rebel line, which is a line that we've really liked on the channel for several years, especially in the last couple of generations. Early on it was quite an aggressive speed leaning shoe, and in later versions it's just become a pretty lightweight daily trainer that really suits a wide range of runs and a wide range of runners, all at a pretty reasonable price. That price is the same as it was for the previous version of the shoe, £140 and $140. The new Rebel V5 weighs in at 225 grams or 7.9 ounces in a UK size 9, which is a US 9.5. That's a little bit heavier, I think something like 10 to 15 grams heavier than the previous model of the shoe in the same size. And then you've got a 6mm drop with a stack height of 35mm at the heel, 29mm at the forefoot. I said it was a little bit heavier, and that is because the stack height has gone up a little bit, I think a couple of millimeters compared to the New Balance Rebel V4. So you are getting a little bit more midsole foam to potentially create a bit more comfort and support underfoot, but it has added a little bit of weight to the shoe. Otherwise, for the most part, the Rebel V5 sticks to the same design as the Rebel V4, which was quite a big departure for the line. So before the Rebel V4, the 1, 2 and 3 were quite narrow, nimble shoes, quite focused on speed, I would say. Like, you could use them as a daily trainer, but they probably wouldn't suit the majority of runners for that. The Rebel V4 basically got a bit higher in terms of stack height and a lot wider, and that created a much more supportive and stable shoe to use for daily training, even if it did take away some of the nimbleness of the line. It's still a very lightweight shoe, and that's still the case with the latest version of the shoe. So you are still getting, hopefully, a very good all-rounder shoe that would work well for a runner who only likes one shoe in their rotation and likes it to be quite a lightweight shoe. So you've got a lightweight Phantom Fit upper. There's a bit more padding around the heel and a slightly higher heel collar compared to the Rebel V4. A little bit of padding on the tongue, but not too much. It's a pretty lightweight upper while still being daily trainery. It's not too aggressive and racy, this upper. It is still pretty comfortable. Then you've got a Fuel Cell midsole. The version of Fuel Cell foam you have with the Rebel V5 is the one that is, I think, 20% PEBA and 80% EVA. I believe it's certainly a PEBA blended midsole anyway, and not the full PEBA you get on the racing shoes in the New Balance lineup. It's a pretty good balanced foam, though not necessarily quite as springy and fun as maybe the foam in something like the New Balance Balos, for example, which does have a full PEBA midsole. It's a pretty similar design in terms of the geometry of the shoe to the Rebel V4, with that kind of slightly sculpted midsole you have. And then the outsole configuration has changed a little bit. You've got one big piece at the front of the shoe there, as opposed to the three pieces divided up on the Rebel V4. It covers most of the forefoot, two sizable strips of rubber at the back of the shoe. There is some exposed foam in the midfoot there, but it's not an area that should see too much degradation over time, and it's a pretty thick layer of rubber on the forefoot and heel of the shoe.
Quick word on fit then, and I say a lot of this in the first run test, so I'm going to keep it nice and brief, but I've got pretty good room at the end of the toe box. There's lots of clearance across the top, and these feel really nice and roomy and airy up front, really spacious. I ran in my regular New Balance size, which is a UK 8.5. That is a US 9. In some New Balance shoes like the 1080 V14, that comes up quite snug, but these in those sizes feel really nice and roomy. Great hold across the midfoot. I really like this kind of tongue, which is sort of padded. It's an interesting, sort of different to any tongue I've seen before, but offers nice padding. It wraps really well, sort of covers and offers comfort to that top of the foot. Again, I really like this kind of balance of padding in the heel collars. It's not overdone, but it's not underdone as well, so you've got good comfort. There's no danger of rubbing on the Achilles from what I've had so far. No heel slipping. Everything feels good, and I would recommend going true to size in this shoe.
So it comes to the fit of the shoe. I've got a UK 9 in the Rebel V5, which is US 9.5. That is the size I generally go for with running shoes and across the New Balance range. There are times when it comes up too tight with New Balance, because some of their shoes do have a very aggressive fit around the toes, something like the Pacer V2 or actually early models of the Rebel, but I was okay in the Rebel V5. It's not the roomiest fit, and if you're using UK sizing and like a roomy fit and you're fairly big for your size, you could maybe look at going half a size up, but I've had no problems with a lack of room around the toes in my runs in it so far. I've also had a good fit around the heel and midfoot of the shoe. I actually would say I prefer the heel design on the Rebel V4 just for the way it creates a bit more room around the Achilles, which is something I'm always looking out for. I don't like shoes that have the chance to rub my Achilles, and this has got a bit more padding there, but it hasn't been a problem. It's a pretty comfortable upper all round.
So I've just finished my first run in the New Balance Rebel V5. I did 6 miles. I did it as a progression run, so I started at like 9-minute miles to work my way up from there, finished on a 6:15. So that's everything from kind of my easy pace right up to probably just faster than my marathon pace. So really good test on quite tired legs as well. I'd already run 3 times today testing other shoes. So yeah, it was a really good test for them. I have to say, before I get into this, I really like the Rebel V4. I didn't get to review them on the channel because I got them quite late. I knew this shoe was coming, but I really liked how that shoe ran. It was obviously a little bit stiffer. There was lower stack, a bit more direct. This shoe now is markedly different. It really changes the way that it feels underfoot with that bigger midsole stack that you've got. It's much more soft. There is good spring to the shoe. The thing is, I still like it. I still like the V5. It has changed it, and I'm a big fan of sort of shoes that are a little bit more direct, that ask you to do something where there's a bit of stiffness and there's a bit of pop to it, rather than just this kind of soft and sinky, squishy, sort of cushiony return that a lot of shoes are going for. And I thought the V4 had a really good sort of mark of that as an antidote to all the shoes that we've been seeing so far. So it was kind of my sort of shoe, rocket and snappy. So I was interested to get into these V5s and see where that went with that bigger stack. I still like the way they ride. They are still nice and smooth. I think they're nice and balanced. I get good stability. There's cushion, but not too much. There's a little bit of punch back from the midsole. Again, it's not overly energetic. It's not wild in any way. It's just sort of consistent. It's notable and it's controlled. And I really, really like that. For what I just did out here, they just felt really smooth. Throughout all of those paces, it was almost like I didn't really notice too much difference coming from underfoot in those paces. They just responded well to everything that I was putting them through. So at the slowest paces, there was plenty of cushion, plenty of protection, plenty of stability, plenty of reliability underfoot. As I moved up through the gears, they started to give me more back as I was working. They're not the liveliest sort of daily trainer, I don't think, out there. There's not as punchy as like a Hoka Mach X2, something like that. There's a little bit more control to them. Just not quite as sort of energetic and all out, I guess, sort of fiery as those shoes. I'd say the kind of Speed 4 as well is probably a bit more energetic as well from Saucony. I'm just trying to think, my bit of tired brains for other shoes. But that said, I think this is going to be another shoe that I really like, really versatile, really easy to run in. The comfort is great. There's loads of room, airiness in the toe box. They fit really well. I had no slipping or sliding, and everything just felt nice, fresh out the box. A shoe that, again, I could just happily go and run in. I'm obviously sort of singing the praises from this first run, but sometimes you whack shoes on and they just feel right. And today these shoes did exactly that. They feel pretty light for the amount of cushion you've got as well. That's how I felt today. So overall, from that first run, was pretty impressed.
So I've done a couple of runs in the Rebel V5 so far. I just did an easy 5 mile yesterday. I went out for an easy to steady progression run today, around 45 minutes. I was a really big fan of the Rebel V4. It's a kind of shoe I really like. Very simple, lightweight shoe that you can use for a nice wide variety of runs. It wasn't exceptionally bouncy, springy or anything like that, but provided a good base for you to work against. That you can do anything in the shoe because it has enough stability for long runs, and it has that lightweight design, which means it is suitable for faster ones, even if it's not necessarily giving you the level of assistance that you get from some shoes with plates or slightly more energetic foams perhaps. All of that seems to be true of the Rebel V5 so far. Like, you have got a little bit more foam here and it has gone up in weight, but really for me it did still feel like the Rebel V4 a lot on the run so far in terms of performance anyway. Like, this is a shoe that is very comfortable at easy paces. I found certainly stable enough for those runs, for long runs. You've got this really wide base, which you do notice supporting the sides of your foot and ensuring you're not rolling around too much and that kind of thing. And then it is nice and lightweight and it does roll over pretty nicely when you start to up the speed. The early models of the Rebel probably were more speed focused and a bit better for faster running. Like when I did up the pace in the shoe today, like it didn't feel like absolutely fantastic like some shoes do. Like, you don't get a huge amount of punch off the front of the shoe. Hasn't got a very aggressive forefoot rock or anything like that, so you have to work maybe a little bit harder to sustain those paces in this shoe. But as a shoe that you can use for that range of paces, starting nice and easy and then rolling through to a slightly steadier pace for me, which is a little bit slower than marathon pace, but working reasonably hard. And this is a shoe that can do those paces pretty comfortably all round. So the foam in the midsole is not like the absolute best in New Balance's range, and it isn't the absolute best for this type of shoe. Like something like the Adidas Adizero Evo SL does give you a little bit more punch with their Light Strike Pro midsole, but it's a really nicely balanced foam. Like, it is responsive. I think for me it feels a little bit maybe denser than the foam on the New Balance Rebel V4. Like, I did do a short run wearing both shoes at the same time just to see if I could feel out those differences, and yeah, it just feels like a little bit denser to me under the forefoot. So maybe it's just the extra foam coming into play and just feeling more of that foam, especially under the forefoot, like I say, which might lead to it having a bit more bounce. But yeah, in that run at the same time, they did have a similar feel to me, which is, lightweight, wide shoes. Like, it's quite rare to have a shoe that is this light, have such a wide base and be that kind of stable shoe, as well as being so lightweight. So it is a noticeable feature of the Rebel. It does mean you get quite a lot of ground contact when you're running, and that can be a bit more noticeable when you're running fast, and as someone with a high cadence, high turnover, sometimes a more nimble, narrow shoe feels a bit better at speed. But the fact it is so light means you can just do those runs, and it's like you can do every kind of run in this shoe is what I would take from my early runs so far. Obviously, there's going to be lots more testing. I'll do some more runs in it, but like the Rebel V4, which I took to the track, I did long runs in it, long, slow, easy runs, that kind of thing. It could do everything. It just necessarily isn't always the absolute best shoe for the job, but it is a shoe that can do lots of jobs, really quite well.
So I've already said a lot, so I'm going to keep this first impression sort of quite brief, just try and sum up everything. So I think really what you've got is good step-in comfort, really good disappearing feel on the foot, good room in the toe box, not overdone, nice security in the heel across the midfoot, all of that stuff. The fit feels right on the foot for me, fresh out the box. Kind of shoe that I would go to for longer miles, for sure. I think they can go sort of, my instinct is I could be happy in these over 2 or 3 hours on feet, even longer. They've actually just popped into my mind, potentially as a comrade shoe. I'm going to go and run in about 8 days, 55 miles. This might be the kind of balance I want. And that is the key thing that I'm going to take home from this first run. My first impression is this is a shoe that just has really nice, happy balance to it. There's good cushion, but it's not overly soft and sinky. There's a little bit of energy to them, but it feels control. So there's lots of stability. There's a bit nice wide platform, and it's kind of a big stack shoe, but it doesn't feel massive stacked on the foot. It still felt quite light for those miles. And the biggest compliment is it just coped really admirably at all of those paces. So first impressions of this have been really positive. I really like what I see. I think they feel really breathable as well to throw that in. It's quite warm here today and muggy. They feel quite airy. So yeah, I'm excited to run more in these, and it definitely has. I mean, the biggest compliment I could pay them really from this first run is that I need to pick a shoe to go and run 55 miles up and down massive hills in South Africa in about 8 days. And these have just leapt right into the equation alongside shoes. I was thinking maybe of the Mero 18. I might have been thinking of going back to a Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. I wasn't necessarily going to go proper full-on carbon race shoe, but these might just fit the bill.
Early verdict on the Rebel V5, obviously lots more testing to come, but this seems just like a really good shoe. A really good, simple shoe with a basic setup. That one that I wish more brands would do, like the Adidas Evo SL is another fun example of this, where you are getting just pretty simple, comfortable, but lightweight upper, pretty good outsole that can handle most stuff, and then just a good foam in the midsole, and all of it adds up to a very lightweight package that does work well for a variety of runs. The Evo SL is more speed focused. It's a less stable shoe than the Rebel and a faster shoe for sure. So that will be the big comparison we'll look at more in our full review. But the Rebel V5 feels a lot like the Rebel V4 for me. Got that extra foam there that maybe just makes it that fraction more comfortable, fraction more geared towards your easy stuff, but it's certainly a shoe that can pick up a lot of runs in your daily routine and feel really good for those runs. And yeah, I look forward to doing a lot more runs in it and coming back with more thoughts in our full review. That's already a look at the New Balance Rebel V5. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell. We'll see you next time.